which I hear is really important. Hello, I'm Larry Gillick. I am Deputy Director for Digital Strategy at the U.S. Department of the Interior, and honestly, that doesn't matter very much for this conversation, but we introduce ourselves. This is Scott Horvath. He is my less evil twin at the U.S. Geological Survey. Paul Tsao from Figleaf, the guy who gets anything done that gets done on my part of the platform. And here we are for two perspectives on audio descriptions. And we should give you a little background. With any luck, this my little techniques here work. Yeah, okay, so one agency, and I'm not kidding, so far, 2 Drupals. You need a little backstory, which is, like, why 2? When any of you who know me know I've spent like years putting together this large Drupal platform that in theory everybody at Interior is on, not him. So, and it's not like, this is not a dig at Scott, because truthfully, when USGS launched their piece of their little, not little, it's huge now, yeah, Drupal space, they had no reason on earth to believe that our platform would be successful. Not one, all right? Not a chance in heck it would succeed. It was originated out of the public affairs shop, okay, the communications office, at the headquarters unit. That is the worst possible idea that we, like, no, why? I don't believe it would happen. Or if I'm him, I'm saying, I'm building my own, right? That's what they did. They built their own while we were setting up the other. Oddly enough, we did wind up eventually with a platform that works and now has a bunch of sites on it, which is nice. And there is still this independent USGS.gov space where they put a whole bunch of other stuff. What do you have, like 100 USGS websites eventually on that thing?
It's going to be roughly 300.
300. So really, it's cool. If they want to be on their own at that point, I'm good. I think there's a management headache that I escaped somehow with that particular bit of humor. So we have these 2 Drupals, which also means 2 completely separate development teams, 2 completely independent platforms. We're not operating on anything the same except it begins with D. That's it. Everything else is probably different. And that includes our response to the need for audio description. So let me just throw this out to you so you get some clue as to what kind of a mess we started with. So that's us. I'm going to make us the bigs insignia. There's these other 2 bigs, the Park Service and the Fish and Wildlife Service. When we were deciding to go to Drupal, there was always this question, like the 2 bigs, if they go off in their own directions, how can we stop them? They're just so big and monstrous, and they have teams, and I don't have power over them. I'm the headquarters unit, sure, but you can't Bigfoot onto the National Park Service. That's just crazy talk. Okay, then you've got, what is that, Bureau of Indian Affairs. I'm looking at a diagonal, so if I missed something, I apologize. OSMRE, that's our surface mining people. BESI, a fairly new agency for environmental enforcement, safety environmental enforcement. They deal with pulling fossil fuels out of the ground under the water, which is always fun. And then you get Bureau, what is that? Is that Reclamation? Sorry, from the side, that's Reclamation. Nice people. They turn ruined ground into better ground. BOEM, they also have to do with ocean energy. And Bureau of Land Management, you see them in the news all the time. No comment. And oh, these guys at the U.S. Geological Survey. And eventually, only these 2. Everybody else, in theory, will wind up on our platform. I'm working on that, okay? There may be a whole other presentation on that at some point. Maybe tomorrow. Anyway, so 1 issue, 2 solutions. Let's talk 508 and audio descriptions. I have neglected to ask the questions I always start with, which is, any feds in the room? Actual feds? Feddy feds? And I'm assuming everybody else is some kind of contractor. Somebody who wants to sell me a product. I'm sorry, I mean that in the nicest, loving way. Like, you want me to pay you to do stuff, right, at some point. That's cool. I have actually no problem with that. Paul is one of those people, right? It's all one big partnership. It doesn't work without both sides. But what's your interest in audio description? Like, how many folks are looking for a technical solution? Okay? How many folks are just interested in 508-ish stuff? I like that. That's all right. Let's just go with that as an answer. So for those of you who may not know, quick background on this whole audio description thing. Imagine the film strip. You don't have to imagine very hard because I put the graphic up. So if we throw, and I really want to leave this microphone for a second, so I'm going to point at that little bit of audio that I striped on the side there. And that is actually a pretty good representation of how film works. Not every kind of film, but a particular setup for putting audio on film. They literally put audio on the side of the pictures. And that's kind of your MP4 video, right? So you get your pictures and your sound together in one nice package, and it doesn't get you much further than that. So we add this web VTT file, which is called a VTT file these days, which I'm kind of hoping will slide its way up there. You need that. So that's your timed text file, and it will roll simultaneously, as though we actually have film, right? That is simultaneous with the pictures. So someone who is, say, not hearing the presentation can read the presentation and see the pictures, which gets us partway through this abilities thing. So quick quiz. Yes, I am checking what you know for stuff. Difference between open and closed captions.
Open is always on.
Thank you. Sometimes we refer to those as burned in because they'll literally be on the pictures. I'm not saying you have to do it that way, but that's the common way to do it, and that is a really good definition. So bonus points. If I had any points to give out, you would have them.
All right, here we go. Can't even see it from here. Larry walks to center stage, addressing the crowd.
So we've seen how we can replicate, to some extent, the audio experience by using closed captions.
Larry strokes his beard thoughtfully.
What we still need is a way to replicate the visual experience.
Larry looks stage right and gestures to Scott.
This was so much better when I imagined it over here. So that's what Scott has been doing for us, adding audio description to our live production. Well done. Thank you, Scott. Wait, go back. What? Come on now. You did the work. Thank you for playing along. Conveniently, you all knew that if you didn't play along, that would not be description, right? You need the actual thing to happen. You can't just make stuff up. That would be cheating. Thanks, Scott. All right, let's see if we can get through here. So we have these multiple models of how to do this. First, let's get rid of the VTT file because it's just cluttering up my screen right now because we're not talking about that. And let's throw on a new MP4 file. So this one we're throwing on 2 stripes of audio. So that's a second audio track to be basically Scott's voice. So we got my voice as the first track, we get Scott's voice as the second track, and what we do in this model is we switch back and forth between them when someone hits an audio description button. It's a bit like the closed captioning button, but it doesn't have a CC on it. It's pretty straightforward. But anyway, it's a hard switch between 2 full video audio combined files. That's a model. It's actually the standard model. Okay, I'm thinking we should keep going. Here we go. Another model. This is actually, I love this model. This is fantastic. This is a model where you start with your regular video and audio combined stream, and you add on top of it, when someone hits that audio describe button, just an audio feed. There's an elegance to that that really works for me. So we at Interior are using the Video.js model, which is this swapping between 2 full-on MPEG-4 files. So we've got the 1 track of audio and the 2 tracks of audio. And yeah, so we're swapping back and forth. And we wind up with something that looks a bit like this. And I really find myself wishing I could see I had another slide. But so this is our basic setup. Hey. Right next to closed captioning, audio description. For those of you who are curious, and this is not really an audio description thing, I just want you to know it's our player, and so sorry it's not being recorded right now. Share button, toggle transcript. So beneath the player, normally there's some kind of description of what's going on. You hit that toggle transcript button, bam, transcript just shows up in its place and pushes it down. Because sometimes you just want that. You've got your download the video button, your YouTube button, which we may swap out actually for a play button. Haven't really made up our minds on that one. And it's sometimes government systems ain't perfect. I know you probably heard this. And so let's say you're having trouble making it play. Well, we keep another copy over on YouTube. So if you really want to play it on YouTube, you can. And that's what the helper text that I can't show you the helper text, but it would say, hey, play this on YouTube if you feel like it, or if you feel like show social sharing it or something like that. You got your regular play, volume, progress, and here's your audio description, your closed captioning, and your full screen. So that's the whole shebang. And just yesterday, when I double-checked, because I thought I should double-check before I came here, that this is a really good idea for folks to use, I went to our, I want to call him like 98% blind 508 coordinator, who not only sends stuff out for advice from professionals, he is the professional, and he sits there at his desk, and he tries the thing, and it works for him, and he's in. So thumbs up. Had to make sure before I got here. All right, so just so you know, we did steal some of this code from other folks. I think Paul will probably tell you about it later. Every once in a while, there's something that gets goofed up in original folks' code you don't notice. Like when it's on IE11, kill me now, IE11, the little AD button would just go, other wonky things would happen. I'll tell you that, for example, and only in IE11, if you hit the AD button, the video restarts. Ooh! Only in IE11, discovered this yesterday, if you run IE11 and JAWS and press play, it crashes. Yeah, so that's the next thing. So we're going to actually put in a little invisible to the sighted user, but apparent to someone who's using a screen reader. Warning before you hit play is like, hey, this would be actually better if you tried it on Chrome or Firefox or frankly anything but IE11. So good luck.
Works on Edge.
And it works on Edge, yeah, because we're all there. But hey, apparently there are some folks using IE11. Who knew? And that's how it looks when it's playing. I do have the closed captioning up because why not? Yeah. Nice, clean presentation. And that's basically the end result with everything fixed. So that pretty much works out. So yeah, I should warn you, unlike with closed captioning, which I'm sure we all do this, where we default to on and we make the sighted people find the button that turns it off, you don't do that with audio description. That just really confuses people who are not familiar with it. Closed captioning doesn't confuse people. It might be in their way. It might be like irritating if they're like, oh, who cares about the, whatever, I don't care. Right? But it's not confusing. Audio description, you might not know it's something separate just put there for a particular community. So we make people turn it on. Fortunately, like I said, we did test this out. It is exactly where it should be, according to what we call industry standards. Although there has been some, I've been having this little question in my own mind. Why not a kind of a hidden button that only the person using the screen reader can see that would start it from the beginning playing with audio descriptions on? So like a pre-play button that only the person using the screen reader can see? And the answer has been because if that's the button you encounter and you want to do something else, you might try to go back to it. And then you won't be using the button that we actually crafted for it, and it could be confusing because you might not ever actually reach the button that's got all the other capabilities built in. So we're kind of juggling that back and forth. We haven't worked out a big decision on that. We may just put 2 buttons on it. I don't know. It's, hey, nice thing about writing your own code, or him writing our own code, is you get to make up your mind about stuff like that and tweak it along the way and get feedback from the community. So Video.js Player API call, which I'm pretty sure Paul will discuss. All right, so this is Paul's, kicking Paul Tsao, Fig Leaf, my senior developer, and honestly the guy I lean on for every important thing on DOI.gov.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next, we'll start look at what's actually in our video player. We are using the Video.js module. Out of the box, it used the Video.js version 6. However, we are using version 5 because the Video.js API for the current time function only work on 5 and does not work on 6 or 7 yet. So that's the reason we're using 5. And we'll show you how we did the custom buttons and the audio description function. And as Larry pointed out earlier, there are some, we're using the social plugins that's on the video player, and I'm also using the doc plugin, which shows the black bar on top for all the buttons to reside. So here's a quick reminder what the video player looks like. So we start with the function to generate the buttons. Here is the actual code for the custom buttons. It's basically jQuery code to put the buttons into the dock and using CSS to position them. And let's see. Next, we'll talk about the audio description button. This is the function that you use Video.js API to register the button. And here is where the meets the main points. This talk about the function with the toggle function for the button. What happened when you press the button? It will remember the current time. That's the current time function that doesn't seem to work on newer version of Video.js yet. And so a lot of people are staying on version 5 for this function right now. So it will remember what position you are on in the video. When you click on the button, it will play from that point on rather than starting from the beginning. And as Larry mentioned, it currently does not work on IE 11. Seems to be the only one right now, or IE 11 and lower actually. And next, we'll register the button and place it in the scroll bar, the toolbar. So that's where it's placed right next to the closed caption button. That's how we did it. And we'll have this up soon, later this week on GitHub. So here you go, Scott.
Thanks. Okay, so at USGS, as Larry mentioned, we have a completely separate player because we have a completely separate platform. It is Drupal, but we're using a player called the OzPlayer, and I'll go into that in a moment. So where where DOI and that platform uses the double MP4 method, where they're switching between two MP4 files, we're using the model that is the MP4 as the regular video, and then we add on the MP3 file, which is our audio descriptions. So it's really hard to read from the side over here, isn't it? Yeah. So previously what we had been doing is we had been implementing the YouTube embedded player within our Drupal environment. So that part of the issues with that, of course, was that YouTube does not provide the ability to add audio descriptions on videos. They have closed captions; those would come across, but you have no way of adding the AD version unless you wanted to do two separate videos where you're doing one with and one without. Also, it made us completely dependent upon a third-party service for the delivery of our video content, which can be an issue on a government website because you want to make sure that you have that available even when that third-party service, if it goes down, let's say they went out of business, who knows what, but being completely dependent upon a third party can be very problematic. And then there's really no way to customize the player for any specific needs if we needed to do that. The way we were integrating that with Drupal and the way we still are with Drupal is we're using a Scald module, and we bring those things in as video items, essentially. So what we were doing with YouTube is we were pointing to the YouTube URL. Those are being pulled into Scald, and then we'd be adding additional metadata on top of that information, and we'd simply just duplicate that metadata over into YouTube as well, so we had a matching pair, basically. Of course, because they're installed now, they're also available through drag and drop, so we can move them into any of the content types that we have on our site. And that's how we were integrating the YouTube player into our existing Drupal environment. So again, the thing with the YouTube is that it didn't address the AD issues easily. We had really no way of adding an audio description on top of the existing video player. And one of the things that we had a need for was when Larry mentioned this, but DOI had created signed a directive back toward the end of last year that said the new Section 5 web refresh is coming out in January 2018. We're fully supporting that, fully moving forward with it. All video, all audiovisual will have the audio description capabilities, so on and so forth. So we had an immediate need to get something into place that was quick enough for us to do, but also provided the necessary functionality that we needed, but still allowed, was fully accessible as a video player and was mobile friendly. That was the other thing as well. We do have a mobile friendly requirement across the federal government now. There is a congressional bill that has been signed that requires all federal websites to be mobile friendly. So we wanted to make sure that that tool also supported those needs. So our new video player that we're now using now is the Accessibility OzPlayer. Accessibility Oz is a company that's based out of Australia. The OzPlayer is a HTML5 with the Flash fallback. It does support much like the Video.js, it does support a closed caption toggle button and an audio description toggle button. The audio description one is specifically for the MP3 file, so it loads them both up at the same time, and it switches between, just turns it on and off basically as you click that button. We also have the ability, one of the things that we didn't have with the existing YouTube player was the ability to switch out the YouTube URL and have that replace the existing video nicely, because a lot of times what would happen is we would replace the video on YouTube and then we'd have to redo our video add-in. So what we now have is the ability to easily remove and replace the video that we actually have in the system, which makes it much easier. We have the ability with the video player now to have an interactive transcript. Basically what the interactive transcript is rather than just having the text-based transcript, it actually takes your closed captions and puts them into a box beneath the video, and then it highlights the lines as the video is playing in time with the closed captioning. It's essentially just the closed caption file, but stripping out the time text. And then we also have the ability to integrate an optional audio description caption as well. So you can do a VTT file that will integrate with that closed caption VTT file as well, and then pull them together into one in that interactive transcript. So you could essentially watch the video without having to actually see the video if you've got both the audio description closed caption and the actual closed caption together. So of course the video player itself, we can still have the ability to do two different videos if we wanted. The way we do that now is we have just the one video, and then we'll have a separate one that is for AD purposes if we go down that route. Sometimes there is a need for having an extended audio description track. So you've got to do some additional editing work to your original video where you're adding a freeze frame and adding extended audio descriptions and then continuing it. So for those cases where we have to do that, we'll have a completely separate video instance. But in those cases that we don't need to do it, we simply have the one video with an MP3 file. So this is the requirements that we have for a video player right now. We require an MP4 file, so that's just the standard video that we have. We have the audio descriptions as an MP3. We have a poster frame image, so the PNG or JPEG file for that still frame. The closed caption file is a VTT. The transcript, we also require a transcript file. This is just for us at USGS, but we use the transcript file specifically for the search indexing. The index is not pointed at the closed caption file, because we don't want to index the timestamps and all the other stuff like that, so we're just indexing a transcript. And then we actually have a transcript file as well. That's also the VTT format for the audio descriptions. So all of these come together within the back end to support the video player. This is what our video player looks like. So I'm going to walk over here. So at the top left, we do have this. It's got a skip video and a show description or skip the transcript link at the top. We have our interactive transcript down here at the bottom, so you can see that it highlights the line as it shows up on the video itself. Closed captions and audio descriptions toggle similar to the Video.js, all the other standard controls. full screen as well. The difference that we have between, and I just mentioned this to Larry too, but the difference between the two players that we have is where Larry has on the DOI site, the AD and CC's closed captions are turned off by default. We have ours turned on by default. Personal preference, I think this is a matter of, we can talk about like which is best, which isn't, whatever, but there's advantages and disadvantages to both. We just chose to keep them on by default. So this is just another example of the DND format. And so when we put these video items into Scald, and we drag these into one of our content types, this is how it shows up on the page. This is justified right now. We've got a full bleed as well. It's possible on the left. But the transcript does show up with the interactive transcript box. So as you play it, it will work. You can minimize that transcript box. You still have a description if you want to have, if the description comes across, you can get rid of that. But that information is still there. So even in the mobile environment, it's still playable, and it's the same thing. And then you can go off to the full video if you need to. So I do have an example. Can I get to it from here? Let's see if this will work. So this is, how do I get back over to here? All right, so this is, I'm going to show this transcript right here. So this is the interactive transcript. This is one that we just put up here. You can see right now that the closed captions and AD are on. This one doesn't have a lot of audio description. It's simply just in the beginning.
USGS and words "Science for a Changing World" appear in white, then fade to black.
Guess there's no sound coming out of this either. So basically,
A total
what
solar
is, for the initial opening scene, it would say the viz
Clips.
it would
Darken the
visualize
skies
it
over the
actually has a, we have standardized clips for all of our videos for audio described versions. So
United
that
States
was
on
part of
August
that,
21st,
video.
2017.
But as the closed caption
14
you see that
states
the interactive transcript is moving along with the closed caption as well. And you can toggle those things on and off. All right, how do we get this out of here now?
We're in the path of totality, a 70-mile wide band.
Is this tab right here? You can see. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, did we have any issues with the implementation? Not really. The ones that, the two main ones basically is just making sure that the markup is right for the Drupal fields. So, for example, fields need to be added
Under
for
which the
transcript
moon
files,
fully
the
blocked the
captions,
sun for
descriptive
just
audio
under 3
file,
minutes.
just to make sure that those are available through, when we're creating our video atom. And then initially, my understanding was that there were some issues with the OzPlayer CDN and getting the JavaScript and CSS files to come across, but that was all worked out.
Oshkosh,
But other than
a town
that,
in the
there
Nebraska
weren't,
Sandhills,
any
was
issues with implementing the player within the Drupal environment. But there is still a way to go, of course, ways to go, because although we have a technical solution, the harder part is just from a cultural change within the organization, because people just have never created audio descriptions before. They have no idea how to do it. We're still learning. Everyone else is still learning. And
the
then
prime
having to train
location
people
for
how to do
viewing
it,
the
because it
eclipse.
can,
This
take some
Landsat
time and
7
money
image
to do. It's necessary, and we need to do it. We should be doing it. It's just a matter of getting to that point where it's as easy to
shows
do
the
as
town at
closed captions as we
11:33
can
a.m. local
for,
time
creating
on
closed
August
captions these
18th.
days. So one day we'll get there, but we got a ways to go.
All right. So, hey, I took some notes while you were speaking.
Good.
No, you should stay because we should share
okay.
some of this.
Okay.
Please, if you would. All right. So, money has been an issue, and
2016,
cookies
just
have been
over
an
a
issue
year before
on
the
a couple,
eclipse.
different
The sandy
solutions we tried.
surroundings to
So,
the-
for example, look, I'm the biggest anti-cookie government guy you're going to meet here, probably, and I know there are plenty
North and
of people who
south
don't
are
want
bright
tracking
and
on
clear in
websites.
the natural color image,
I'm kind of
as
religious
is the
about
look.
it. If you go to DOI.gov, you will find one cookie. You run ghostery on any page of DOI.gov. If it's more than one, let me know, because someone has messed something up. The one you're going to get is an anonymized Google Analytics cookie. But it
green
is anonymized,
vegetation
like
along the
hopefully
North
everybody
Platte River
else
to the
that I
south.
know in
The
government
green
uses.
circles
And
peppered
nothing
throughout
else,
the
right?
image.
So I'm not embedding a YouTube video. I find that really irritating that someone's got to kick back, tracking information to Google about me being on a
Signal the
government website.
location of center
Now,
pivot
conveniently, I've been
irrigation
reading this.
systems.
There's a sort of an anonymization with YouTube, but I always wondered when it was going to get turned off. Right, because they don't say it's going to last forever, and Google is in the business of knowing where we are and what we're doing and selling that information. It's cool, I get it, but I'm not having it on my .gov website.
Later, Landsat
That's
7
just
captured
not
an
what
image
I'm
of
gonna do in
Oshkosh
life.
at the same time
Same as
day.
any of those Facebook like buttons. Yeah, they're all fake Facebook like buttons on my website. There are no tracking cookies attached. They'll work, but they're not going to trigger a cookie. That Twitter feed you see on the homepage of DOI.gov, it does not throw a cookie. Okay, that took work. That's you. That's
Just
Paul.
17 minutes
it does not
before
throw a single
totality.
cookie.
Each
And in the
feature
next
in the midday
iteration, sorry, and a lot of that's Becca too. And the next iteration of that is going to eliminate even Twitter's ability to know that we're pulling the images, because it's all the servers going to do the work, not any of your desktops. Happy.
Is darker.
So
A scattering of
that was
clouds
one
to
of
the
my
west
sort
was
of
the
differences
brightest
from the
feature.
beginning. Like, a
The
lot
next
of our bureaus use YouTube. I'm just religious anti-cookie guy. I'm just having the privacy for all of us. But my question was, of course, how did you deal with the cost issue with OzPlayer? I know you have an answer, which is why
total
I'm
solar
asking.
eclipse will take place
deal
on
with the
July
cost?
Yeah,
2nd,
because there was a cost issue, right?
2019.
They
Yeah, it
wanted
was
to
a small
charge you
cost.
money, right?
Yeah, it's a small cost. It's a yearly fee. The price is relatively inexpensive, and it was an easy enough purchase. And
So you actually paid for it?
yeah.
Oh, I thought they got around it. I thought you guys were doing like an exchange where you'd write code.
No,
and-
we were
Okay.
interested in that, but the cost is it's a yearly license, and it covers pretty much
That
every
eclipse
domain
will be
that we can
visible
for
in
every
the South
subdomain
Pacific,
that we can throw
Chile,
out.
and
So we
Argentina.
can use it for any site if we need it.
Okay, so that's another difference between I either have to find money.
Letters, USGS, and Word,
or I
Signs
have
for a
to,
Changing World appear in
well,
white.
that's it. I have to find money, or I have to use this other solution. I went with find the other solution. I never knew what was going to happen with money.
Right.
One of the reasons this is still like sort of on my mind is we started with the JW Player back when it was free, and then of course they changed their licensing model, which stopped me from wrong. That was irritating, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We know, hey, people are allowed to make money. I'm not knocking that. But having to change over your entire government scheme or find a new line item and convince people to spend money to make your video player work is hard sometimes when you're the guy at headquarters who's suddenly responsible for this thing. So again, we went for free. And as long as it keeps working, I'm happy. So that's the thing. And let's see if there's anything else here. Oh, and this goes to Scott's point about how tough it can be to write audio descriptions. Different experts will tell you different things about what is required in audio description. So for example, if all I've got, because we have a cabinet secretary, Secretary Zinke, you may have heard of him. Maybe you've got a clip that says something like, okay, Secretary Zinke says X about saving this wildlife. And you're like, okay, great. And then it's just him standing saying, we should save wildlife. That's good. That's all I need. Do I really need audio description to go with that? Most experts that I've spoken to say, no, I think it's been pretty well described already outside the frame. I don't think you need to pause and say, Secretary Zinke is wearing a blue shirt today, because not really adding to the conversation. But there are other folks who will tell you that if you do not provide the equivalent experience that the sighted person gets, you are wrong. And to that person I say, yeah, I'm pretty sure the person who's hearing the audio description was also trying to get to the soundbite. And if you stop them with the description of the scene when the scene is not particularly relevant to the conversation, then you're actually disenfranchising the person. You're hurting their ability to get the information. So again, that is an active debate in this community. So in the audio description community, there is not uniformity. I'm leaning towards let's get the message across and give what information is important. Do I need to describe Secretary Zinke as being tall, or can I just say it's Secretary Zinke? I'm going with it's Secretary Zinke. So what I'm going with for now. Hopefully nobody sues me tomorrow. Cool? Yeah, okay, so on to this choices thing, which I really should say by this microphone. But choices, we don't mandate very much for our bureaus who are on our platform. We don't even mandate that they come on the platform. We say, okay, you can stay on your current system until it melts down. But if you ever decide to get off it, then yeah, you should go to Drupal. And why would you spend extra developing your own from scratch when there's one sitting right here you can use? Usually that logic is pretty persuasive. Not always, but it's pretty persuasive. Then I ask someone else to Bigfoot in. Not me. I don't play that. So in this case, all of our bureaus and offices that have video, they can go ahead and very easily use our solution because it's already working on the platform, right? So it's just a matter of lighting up that same code in their instances. No big deal. But if they like, the USGS solution, I'm certainly not mandating that they don't use it. I like the USGS solution. I think these are two really good solutions, and whichever one you decide to use, you get your own solution, is fine with me. The only thing I would say to our bureaus and offices is, don't start from scratch and burn the time and taxpayer dollars making a whole new third way of getting there, unless you've got a really good reason. Like, come up with a really persuasive reason for not using their fully baked solution, or we're really close, right? Our really close to fully baked solution. One of those surely will work. So you got to come up with a good reason. And that's about it on choices. Let me double check. Yep, so that's some contact info. Thanks, Scott. I did not put that in there. Well done. So if you need to reach us, that's us. You can't have Paul. I'm keeping him. But if you need some technical questions answered, I'll put you through, Paul, no problem. So, questions? In the back.
Yes. Larry, have you all come up with are you all working at a solution for including the audio description VTT with your solution so that when they hit the audio description, they also see the transcript that includes the audio descriptions?
So the question is whether we're considering adding the audio description VTT as well. Honestly, it just hadn't come up in conversation yet. So there's not a plan for it, but I'm not saying we wouldn't do it. We actually, next on our secret plan, I should tell Paul this at some point, next on my secret plan, is to take the AD button and all the tech behind it and repurpose it into the switching languages button. Because it's the same thing, right? I mean, what exactly keeps us from using this, from making a Spanish language or Hmong, or you just insert your own language here button? It's the same tech. Why isn't it done today? Because I didn't tell Paul. So, thanks. I know there was another hand. Hi.
So on performance, especially, so
Yep.
it's like we have videos that are like 2-3 hours long, some like required public hearing, right? Some of those do need audio descriptions. There's slides, there's charts. With the 2 MP4, does it load like both upon page load? Does that slow the user down? In that case, would an MP3?
Sure, that's it. So the question is, imagine you've got a really long video. Does the 2 MP4 solution load both simultaneously, which sounds like a bear. Honestly, I thought it was going to do that when we first started down this road, and I was thinking, there's no way this is going to work. Right? There's no way. Fortunately, that's not actually how it works, right? So Paul, why don't you give us a more technical answer than I'll give, which is no, it's not like that.
So basically, it loads the non-audio described video first, and when you click on the button, it changes the source and fetch the new video, and then that's when it's loaded.
Okay.
At the time hack. Conveniently, it can do that now. That was not a thing when we started this little adventure in video, right? Like back in the day, we were progressive downloading, and you had to wait a certain amount of time. Depending on the format, you might have to wait forever until, no, we don't do that anymore. It just starts. There's actually a hint of a glitch as you do the switch. Conveniently, there's not a lot of folks who are sighted, right? Who are going to be hard switching back and forth between audio described and non-audio described, and only the sighted people would notice the momentary flicker. So, like, everybody who's in the community that we're actually aiming this thing at is 100% fine with it. And anybody who's sighted, like, okay, you get one flick, I'm good. Yeah, I will absolutely accept that for hard swapping one file for another. Cool. Hi.
Hi, sorry if this was covered. I came in late. Do you have any recommendations for how to create the MP3 file?
Oh, Scott, let's grab Scott. And we could bring and ask the
For
question.
the audio description piece. So we're still doing this, but basically what our folks are doing, I mean, we're very decentralized, so we have a lot of video creators across the organization, and they're using very basic tools. So they're using things like iMovie, on a Mac, and they're essentially editing their video as they expected to edit it, and then they create either recording it within the iMovie or they'll do it on their phone. I mean, I've taken my smartphone, dropped it into a camera case with cushioning to deaden some of the sound and recorded on the Memos app, and then sent it over to iMovie, and then dropped it into the video. And so I'm really just recording that audio separate as I'm watching the video on the screen. And then when we export the video without the audio description to get the one without the AD, and then we turn off the sound on all the audio or on all the video, and only leave the audio description piece unmuted, and then export that out as an MP3. So we'll get both MP4 and MP3 from within iMovie. But other folks use other tools to create, video content. So that's just the cheap approach to it.
I'm not going to. All right, so I should say, disclaimer. I started in video. All right, I love video. I love production. So when I say sometimes it's really hard to work with a particularly, I don't want to call it egotistical, self-important, creators can be tough to work with. I don't know if you've heard this. Creative types can be nuts. And I say that as I think still part of the community. But we still have to have this, right? You can't just throw out video of, the eagle flying through the sky and not tell the person who can't see the picture that there's an eagle flying through the sky with just the music in the background. That's A, that's just rude, and B, it's against the law. You had me at rude, right? So I didn't need to get to against the law. And just to sort of prove it, all right, there's a thing we have on DOI.gov, and you can feel free to go there yourselves on anything but a phone. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on a phone yet. We got to talk about that. We have an Open Dyslexic button. We're the only cabinet-level agency that put up an Open Dyslexic button. You pop the button, and your whole text goes to the Open Dyslexic format, that font. And okay, so not everybody with dyslexia loves Open Dyslexic. It's not a cure-all, or there's no magic. You push a button on your website, and suddenly dyslexia is not a thing anymore. Obviously, it's not a cure-all. But some people really like it. And I figured that's a good enough reason to implement it. It's not part of 508, right? It's not a rule. It's not a requirement. It's not a thing. But why not? Why not just do it? What kind of developer effort did it take? What is it, an hour it took? Less than an hour to implement this thing. Yeah, I can blow a couple of taxpayer dollars on making it easier for people with dyslexia to read my government website. No one had to pass a law saying that I would do that, right? So that's our perspective at Interior. 508 is great, but it is not the ceiling on what we can do for people who need a hand. Would you help someone across the street if the blinky light sign wasn't working for them and they couldn't see, and they obviously needed a hand? I'm not saying you just throw yourself on. I'm saying someone's like, dude, could you hook me up? Yes, you would hook them up, right? Why wouldn't we do that as professionals in the government? Right? That whole we're here to help thing. Sometimes it's real. And that's our game, right? So I think you had a hand up, right, sir? Yeah.
Yeah, I may have missed this, but the player that you showed, I didn't understand what that player was. Was it a custom coded player based on Video.js?
Yeah. No, it is out-of-the-box Video.js with custom code on top of it.
Okay, so how are your videos hosted?
Hosted on DOI.gov or self-hosted.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know if that kind of player, modified player, can be applied to videos on hosting services like Brightcove? I'm asking because we use that.
Yes. Funny you mentioned Brightcove.
Yeah, the question